My topic. I'm sick of talking about movies nobody cares about, like Star Wars. Well, now that we can talk about whatever we want on Kind of Funny, subscribe, like, share, Patreon. I want to talk about why no one can seem to make a good Superman movie. And I'll try not to be super defensive because I know he's going to come at me with some stuff that'll make me really mad. So I'll let it go. But it's in my head, it's so easy. If you're watching, of course, we've already given out the email address, business@kindoffunny.com, Warner Brothers. I will give you the pitch on my movie and my video game. Both are dynamite, I'll tell you right now. I also have a way that I'll do a video about soon about how to cross over the movie universes and the TV universe. I got you covered.
Are you going to make a movie based on the N64 Superman?
No, but we will be playing that.
Where you can't see anything. Games. The whole game is about why Superman can't see 5 feet in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of fog is this?
There's so many rings.
To tie this into our last topic, the trailer for Man of Steel is on my top 5 trailer lists of all time. It's so good.
Which one now?
Give people an ideal to strive towards.
So you're going with the Jor-El trailer, not Jonathan Kent.
I didn't care too much for the Jonathan. That character was not solid. Just not Jonathan Kent.
No.
The Jor-El character was amazing though. Russell Crowe is by far the best part of that movie, of Man of Steel. The first 30 minutes of that film
is the best part.
Yeah.
The soundtrack's amazing too.
Yeah, Russell Crowe's really cool until he's on the ship and he's doing like this. You're ruined. That exactly. What the hell is that? It's Jor-El. The apparition of Jor-El on the ship acting like an asshole.
The problem with
pointing Lois around. Does no one remember this movie?
I don't.
The problem with I feel like the problem with Superman is that he doesn't it's not a traditional hero story, right? Where he doesn't ever have to overcome something. It's more about the people around him and the circumstances around him that teach what he does teaches them, if that makes sense. Right?
That does make sense, yeah. You're saying he's not learning as much as he
does. Yeah, he doesn't have as much of a character arc. Even if you watch the cartoons or things like that, it's generally, which I love.
Even if you watch the cartoons.
Well, no, when you watch
your storytelling cartoons.
Well, they are. I mean, to a certain degree, they're better than the actual movies if you watch those.
You're talking about Superman?
Yeah,
1,000%. Yes,
Superman
I agree
cartoons.
with you. Yeah, Superman.
I feel like it's because Superman more often than not is sort of teaching other people things. So the other characters, they always have to sort of have a side character, or there has to be a dynamic. But it's hard for Superman to have to overcome something because he's so damn powerful.
See, and this is where stick with me. This will get me lynched and tarred and feathered and beat to death on the internet.
Okay.
But the problem is that even the Christopher Reeve movies, which I love, aren't good Superman movies. They are the thing that threw everything off the rails. That is a Silver Age interpretation of Superman. He is too powerful. Because when I'll get in arguments with people, Superman's a boring character. I'm like, no, he's not. No, man, all he can do is he can just fly back in time. And I'm like, oh, Christopher Reeve! Why did you do this to us? Because that's where it all went off track.
Yeah.
Of this guy is so powerful that he can rewind time. And so many people believe that. And so it doesn't matter that the cartoon resets in a way that he's I remember them being very vocal, Bruce Timm and everybody, when they brought the cartoon out of our Superman can be hurt by conventional weapons. Granted, it has to be a tank or whatever, but he's not able to just fly straight through and not feel a thing, right? This is happening to him. And then same thing with Smallville, right? Where Smallville is the best live action interpretation of Superman ever, period. Of my lifetime, anyone's lifetime.
Better than Lois and Clark?
Yeah.
The hell are you talking
better
about,
than Lois and Clark. Sorry, Joey Esposito. But that's the whole thing, right? Is the fact that now it's always unfair, I think, to judge TV and movies, right? Because 10 years of Smallville was the best. There's a lot of shit in Smallville. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of bad, but the good is so good. You know what I mean? If they could boil that down to a movie, it'd be so perfect.
Yeah, but I mean, taking it a step back with that, the reason why Smallville was so good was because he was discovering all those. We were discovering all those powers with him, right?
Sure.
He didn't. I'd have never seen the part in Smallville, spoilers, where he flies, but apparently that does happen, right?
Yeah.
So I just remember seeing, okay, there's someone, and he's a teen, so he's discovering all these things about himself that he didn't know about, which is very much, you can sympathize with that, going through puberty and going through being a teen.
Sure.
Lana.
What's that?
Lana.
Oh God, Lana. There was that scene where she goes swimming and she's in just the lingerie and she jumps off. That was fantastic.
I mean, to burst your bubble, of course, Kristen Kierick would never do any of those scenes. That's a body double.
Yeah,
whatever.
No, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter to you? Okay. So,
you just broke me, Greg.
no problem.
Yeah.
Erica Durant's much better in terms of you want somebody who was real that entire show. Erica Durant's.
Who's that?
Lois.
Oh, I was in the Lois too.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
There's no Lana.
It's also just really hard because Superman never has to actually. He very seldom has to overcome adversity in a cerebral way. Batman, not looking at the Dark Knight Rises, which I still hold that trilogy was not a great Batman story trilogy.
Oh, you're out of your mind.
Where like Batman Begins was an awesome Batman tale. Dark Knight Rises, not so much about Batman.
About their villains.
More about their villains.
Yeah.
So, but the power of Batman over Superman is that he has to figure out a way to beat his villain. Like, he can't physically overcome that person. Whereas Superman, I always feel like, right when we get to that all-important, like, second act turning point where he's got to sort of whatever we set up comes into play and he figures it out and he grabs the MacGuffin and he beats the villain, he always just kind of powers through it, right? Where, like, even in Man of Steel, case in point, I can't deal with this big this planet builder thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to punch a little harder. And I'm going to go up there and I'm going to scream a little bit more. And nothing that we set up in those first 2 acts really is helping him do this other than the fact that he's just being more powerful, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing really compelling about that. Whereas if you look at, like, Batman Begins, he had to rely on all the things that he learned in the League of Shadows to beat Ra's al Ghul, right? Case in point, and it's screenwriting 101. Set up, payoff. He goes, you never learn how to mind your surroundings, right? And he goes, I can't remember what he says, but he's like, you never learn how to mind your surroundings. And he throws the thing out, and goes, and just pops out of the train, and Ra's al Ghul goes off the tracks. And never mind the fact that he was swinging back and forth underneath the pillars as he was going, like,
don't
was
worry
wrapped
about
around
it.
and broke his neck. That's why to me, Batman Begins is so great. That's why Dark Knight, not so much. At no point in Dark Knight, other than that cool array, did he use the things that he had learned to beat the
Like
Joker.
his bionic knee that can kick through walls or whatever the hell?
I think that was Rises.
I thought you said. I apologize.
No, sorry. Yeah.
I'm still mad about Rises.
Rises was even worse, right? Like, Rises should have been about him coming back and figuring out how to beat Bane.
Yeah.
And then we have this all-important note where he in the first act, or maybe it's the second act, I can't remember timing-wise, he goes up against Bane and just goes, I'll fight harder, right?
Yeah.
Every single time I'm going to fight harder. That is not Batman. Batman can't just fight his way through this thing. He had to figure out, in the comic books, how does he beat Bane? It's not by beating the Venom. Take out the Venom, right? So we have that one kind of homage to that where he punches him in the mouth.
That was possibly your worst Bane of all time. No, brother!
He says that.
Gotta get to the 1920 stock market, do I?
And so I think that in order to make a good Superman movie, you have to have a villain that can beat him on some level, right? And that villain's always been Lex Luthor.
Right.
Lex Luthor has been the sort of brain version of Superman's brawn.
Right.
Right? And that's why Lex is able to sort of escape the law and get out of all these trouble, because he's smarter than Superman is. Superman then has to figure out a way to beat him using his brain, less his brawn, or some combination of the two.
Sure.
We just haven't seen that yet. Right? We saw it a little bit in Superman 2, where he fights Zod and has to trick him into giving up his powers.
Sure.
Don't know why they thought it was a great idea for him to rip the Superman symbol off of his chest and throw a giant
Hey, this
saran
guy who
wrap
can
thing.
rewind time doesn't have enough interesting abilities.
Let's give him the cellophane S.
Makes sense.
I think they can, and I think they will, and I think my hope is that Superman versus Batman is going to be that compelling tale, because we're now mixing in the wild card, which is Batman.
Yeah.
Right. Batman's going to come in, and I think they're going to be obviously at odds at first. They're not going to know how to deal with each other, and we have that great scene we've seen in that leaked footage where he's calling Superman out for all intents and purposes, and like they're facing off, and he's in the comes out of the clouds of lightning. That is amazing. But I'm hoping that they have to team up to beat Lex Luthor in a way that is compelling,
This will just be like when they crossed over for the first time in the animated series, because that same thing happens.
Yeah,
where they go
awesome.
toe to toe for a while, and then they have to go and fight Joker. And
That's a
Classic
perfect
comic book movie stuff.
That's a great moment, by the way.
Yeah.
You're talking about Superman and Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is the problem. Let me just bring it back.
Yeah.
You're gonna pack it. You're gonna pack it.
I'm gonna pack it back and then I'm gonna pack it again.
Thank you.
Because I don't want to keep anything in the box. Superman's too powerful. And Superman's a product of, Greg's not the first person I knew that was really into Superman. He's the person I know that's most into Superman. But I remember even having these thoughts and these not these arguments, but these conversations, even these inner monologues with myself, where I'm like, why does anyone care about Superman? Because he's an interesting character. He looks cool. He's strong. He has the cape. But he's a product of like these old comic book norms where you can do anything you want. He seems like a product of underdevelopment. And then continue to just be on this path where he's just the most powerful thing there is, and then they had to he's weak to the specific substance. But basically I agree with you in the sense that I don't know what they can do to him to make him interesting ever. Even making him work with Batman doesn't make any fucking sense. And that's why I was so confused by that crossover. It's like Batman's a normal person. You know, like
Right.
Superman should be
With
able to,
unlimited resources and a million gadgets and
Yeah,
press the button.
but
Morgan
Superman
Freeman.
should be able to take Batman and crush him in 2
But
seconds. It doesn't make
that's-
any sense. Why would he need his help?
That's where I think they can have a lot of fun, right? That question that you just asked: why would we put these two together? How could Batman possibly exist going up against Superman? Is a very, very compelling thing. I want to know the answer to that.
Well,
How
that's
can
why
he
the
exist,
Man of
right?
Steel comic book works so well, right? Is like when Superman swoops in for the first time, it's like, I'm gonna take you on. You're a crazy person. He's like, look with your whatever vision, you know what I mean? And he sees it as an aura. He's like, if you break that aura, a bomb goes off and kills an innocent person somewhere in Gotham. He's like, you're a maniac, blah, 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 what you say? And like later on, of course, it's determined that the bomb is on Batman. Like Batman's not gonna hurt anybody. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole thing.
I just, to me, like we've talked about this. I don't want to tread over it over and over again. But
We
it's
have not
just,
talked about it on camera for sure.
Well, no. Well, with Batman, like the
100%
reason I
true.
love the Dark Knight trilogy so much is because, you know, like '89 Batman and the 90s Batman, you know, the '89 Batman is awesome, and Batman Returns is great too. But even the ones in the middle that were like campy and weird, like were funny and stupid. You know, like. And I actually like all of them. I like all of those movies. Like, I don't think that they're excellent movies, but like I think that they're funny and they're
Kill the
weird.
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
The Ice Age.
Like it's like
ugly.
it was like they were all different. They all did something different. I think Batman's like a really compelling character because of the villains around him, and I think that the reason Dark Knight worked, and I've said it before many times, is that because it's fucking real. Like it's about it's about as real as like this kind of story can possibly be, and that's why it was interesting.
Yeah.
And so a guy who uses like hallucinogenic drugs and puts a fucking burlap sack over his head is a lot more believable than like, or a guy that's just fucking crazy, or a guy who's like trying to take the stock market is like a lot more believable than all of these like these space villains and shit like that.
I wish Bane was taking the stock market. What a brilliant play that
And
would have
like
been.
or whatever he's like, you know, like all these things are like I was.
No,
so
I know
hurt-
what you mean.
I was hurt because it was grounded, and there's nothing grounded.
See,
about
now
Superman.
here's where it gets down to it with me and Superman, and like why
And I want to ask you a question because I really want to ask you this.
I think I'm about to answer it. But go ahead.
I just want to know why. Like, I've never asked you like got into them. Like, why do you like Superman so much more than
Thanks for asking.
more than yeah? Like, I want to know
Here's
like
why.
what it
Here's
is.
why. And like this is I give up so much ground on the Superman fight in the way of like whenever he's boring in this. I'm like a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like the other day, Max Scoville texted me. He's like, "Hey man, I want to buy a bunch of DC comics. What should I get?" And I listed all this shit, and I sent it. And I looked back. I'm like, I give you like 15 comics, and none of them were any super series at all. Nobody was connected to the House of L at all. You know what I mean? Just because they're poorly written right now. And granted, there's you got some good stuff happening right now with Snyder and whatnot. Have you been reading this?
No, I'm not into Superman at all. Period.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, Superman's just a Batman side thing.
Oh wow. Breaks my heart.
Damn.
So here's what you're talking about. All these, you lose it when space gets involved, right? Or like,
Or
when,
just like any
aliens.
like real superpowers, like anything that's not like because even Bane in the animated series
Sure.
or Poison Ivy or like they all have these kind of like mystical abilities.
You know,
But
like that.
Poison Ivy in Nolan's Batman would not have been anything more than a botanist who was crazy. And that
Sure,
was what
had
was,
figured out some way to command planes.
exactly
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I was so excited to see. I really wanted them to do Freeze because I was like, how are they going to? How are they
I'm
doing
with you on
him?
that.
You know, like so that's what I'm saying.
That removed for me when I always talk about why I love Superman, what Superman I love, and why I love Smallville so much. Right, is the fact that it's a story that I think super interesting in the way of this alien coming to Earth and then becoming an Earthling and becoming a Kansan. But you know what I mean, representing who we are and the best of what we can become. Not alone, I mean, from a larger scale, right, it's this immigrant story, this guy who comes here and bootstraps, makes his way through whatever. But I mean, on the ground of it, right, of like, especially in Smallville, like nuclear family, homecoming dances. Like the thing I'd watch Smallville and be really into in college is the fact that I wished I had had that kind of high school life, that kind of town, that kind of small community, farmers markets, this kind of dance, all this dumb stuff, one place everybody hung out at.
Blonde friend.
Yeah, a Chloe, sure, whatever, a Pete. You know what I mean? All these different
We all
people
want
that
our
hang.
Pete.
Yeah, these people, you have like 2 Petes.
I got 2 Petes.
And they have these people that like made up this nuclear family, nuclear life kind of thing. You know what I mean? And what stuck with me and why I think Smallville works so well is at no point does Clark ever look at himself, and I guess at some points he does, but I mean the overall story, right? Does he ever look at himself as alien? You know what I mean? That's so secondary to his person. He is a normal person that has these extraordinary abilities, and he has to learn how to deal with it. And so like when they introduce Swan or all these different things and like what Kryptonian is and how that all works, the push and pull between him and Jor-El that he wants to stay with Jonathan and this is how it works. That works for me. So like the reason I connect so much with Superman is that he's an ideal, right? This is something I've talked about before. Like 13 years of Catholic school, right? And never at any point in a decision is it what would Jesus do? It's what would Superman do? You know what I mean? What is the right choice? What is the moral high ground here? Because that's what Superman would take, right? And like Superman versus Batman, right? Or like, and I don't mean the movie. I mean in terms of ideologies. I love Superman because he shines to the light. He believes in the good of people. Like he basks in the sunlight, literally and figuratively, right? Whereas Batman exists in the shadow and everybody's a threat and he can't let anybody in. And that's like to this day, even right now with the Snyder books, Batman. It's an amazing series, an amazing run, but you see him dealing with keeping everyone at arm's length and how it just doesn't work out, and how, for me, that's a buzzkill. It's just in the way of, like, Bruce is, like, not even a tortured soul, right? Like, he is the fucking, he'll never be happy. And, like, in Hush. Hush is this amazing book, and you read it and read it and read it, and Catwoman says one thing at the end, and he's like, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah.
Bitch! And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man! Like, give yourself that little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always
it would also help if he stopped dating super criminals.
Sure. Even it never ends well for anybody else, but like, and this goes back to just maybe me and who I am and what I want, right? Like my mom always tells the story of like when I'd have a Superman figure, I always needed a Wonder Woman figure, and when I had Ghostbusters, I always needed Janine, right? I needed people to be together and there needs to be that moment of happiness, right? And so for me, the fact that Superman, for the most part, is happy. Like, he gets tortured. There's a million bad things that happen to him too. But there are the pillars of Jimmy and Lois and now Wonder Woman, Diana, right? These people that can be his circle, can be his nuclear family again. But like even now, the current Superman books, right, have deviated again for me. Just of like, all right, Mom and Pa Kent are dead, and he really feels like he's an alien. He doesn't feel that much like Clark, and I was like, ooh, like that's not what I want. It's the same problem I have with Supergirl right now. She's super Kryptonian. Always will be, probably, right? Yeah. And it's just like, that's a turnoff to me. I like it that he is, and that, again, I keep going back to Smallville because that was such a great version of it, of this is who he is, he's this ideal, he's striving, he's learning, and this goes back to what you're saying, right? That he's learned these lessons.
That's compelling.
But in that same breath, I mean, like, you can tell an origin story that boils that down that then means something going forward. And the fact of, like, I read the Smallville digital comics, right? And for me, like, he's Superman there. He's still learning and doing all these different things. But, like, it's the backstory of the 10 years with that character that means something. I see what you're talking about, the callbacks to Act 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's what they tried to do with Man of Steel, right? They tried to sort of show us him. They tried to cram all of Smallville into that first, like, 45 hour, of the movie.
45 hours.
Well, yeah, because we kept getting flashbacks as he was going, and we were like seeing what he was learning as a
right.
It was a lot of flashbacking in that movie.
100%. Oh, there's too much. But I mean,
then we had the tornado where it's like, dude, really, like you're faster than a speeding train. Like you can't just grab him and come back.
And see, like here's where this is like where I try to have my cake and eat it too, right? Like everything you're saying that is too powerful sucks because. Just set up what his boundaries are. You know what I mean? Like in Invincible, right? Invincible, we know he can't fly from Africa to the United States in 2 seconds.
Right.
Like he'll be faster than a normal person. He'll be faster than other heroes, but like it's the same thing. Like, how fast is Superman? You know what I mean? I'm not asking for them to clock him with a gun or whatever or show, but if you
just one statement.
If you show him struggle with a fucking SUV or something, you're like, oh, I get it. And like when you were saying it's a throwback to when he was too powerful in the beginning. In the beginning, the motherfucker couldn't fly. He could just jump over buildings, right? And hypodermic needles bounced off his skin. It's like it all got off track in the Silver Age, and I feel like nobody's really come in to corral it in the popular opinion to say this is what he is and what he can do and how it works.
Well, that's I mean, to me, that's why it comes to mind. Like him. To me, him doing with the expert way that DC and everyone has handled Batman recently and made him interesting, and they did it when we were kids too. But I mean, Batman, I think is at the top of his game now. Like in terms of like just intrigue. Like I want to know more. I want to see more of these villains because that whole universe is just fucking awesome.
Video games, everyone.
Putting him in a movie with Superman is going to expose Superman. I think, in terms of being like
popular opinion.
in terms of being like what the like how is this possible? Because I believe I agree with you rather that. They need to start a retcon Superman to just make a new Superman arc that is the canon Superman from here on out where he's not all these things. But to me, like I'm sad to say it, but it's like almost like they should just put Superman away, and be like Superman is one of the great superheroes of all time, super important, all these things but he doesn't. It doesn't work.
No, he's just Batman's side bitch.
What I hope they
Keep it that way.
see. My thing is this, and it's going to be really hard from just a shooting standpoint to figure out. you've got two heroes, you have to have two sort of rising lines of action, right? You got to have the sort of, if you've got a multiple cast of heroes, you have to have the sort of climax of the film be very similar to, we're fighting on Endor, we're also invading the Death Star, right? And we're also fighting the Emperor on the bridge of the Death Star, right? So we're going to have those, which would be really interesting to see what they do with that. My hope is that they do that instead of the X-Men storytelling where they just take Professor X out of the story every single time, like midway through, so he can't solve the problem for everyone. Because if Professor X could just be like, the story would be over, right?
God damn
it's like, boom. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. Put him in jail. So I hope they don't. I hope it's not Batman coming to save Superman at a certain point. I hope they really.
It totally will be. Yeah.
Probably. I mean, when I think about it, and I know it won't be like this, but the best telling of their dynamic is The Dark Knight Returns, where. I really don't want to spoil anything because if you've never read that comic book, please.
I love
go
how
read
many
it.
fucking movies we've blown out of the water this
I know,
episode.
but
You're
this-
like, well, The Dark Knight Returns. You haven't seen it.
But this one is
Read
like,
it.
this is a comic book that I think, if you don't read comic books, go read this, because the way Frank Miller sort of plays with that dynamic and plays with the importance of what Superman means to the world and what Batman means to the world is so cool and so unique. Like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, but hopefully it'll be something on that level.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Is like, you hoped with Man of Steel that like the things I'm saying about his power level, set it, do something, show it, it would work. But then you get these things where they poorly explain the atmosphere and the ship, and it's just like, well, wait, is it this or is it that? Is it the sun? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, right.
They didn't set
and
up
so
just
now,
make the ground rules very, especially for rebooting. Because I'm always very much a fan of like my Superman movie, my Superman game, whichever one I get to do first. Business at kindoffunny.com. It's not an origin story at all. Like, you know what I mean? I'm putting you in the toy box and setting up real quick what's happening. How
That'd be
powerful
great.
is
That's the Spider-Man movie I want.
Yeah.
I want so bad. I just like, give me a reboot that has. I don't need to know an origin story. Whatever.
you got it. It's Amazing Spider-Man 2.
To me, to me, the fact that you have to set everything up and like reestablish Superman says to me that Superman just shouldn't exist in this world, like in this particular world of superhero movies and superhero fiction anymore, because it's just.
But that's not fair.
Well, it's
Why
hard
not?
though. It's
because
really
like
hard.
there's been so many creations and different takes on them, all these different things, that it's just a muddled mess. Whereas if I was to set you down and be like, the cartoon's great at it, just, hey, here's what it is, that's Lois, that's Jimmy, there you go. Like mine, I'd want to set you down and Lois knows the identity, they're in a relationship, now we go, and this is happening here. Zod's never been introduced.
Yeah, but
before.
everyone thinks Superman is like, everyone's always going to think of Superman as Reeves, or.
I don't think so.
I mean, like, people our generation do, maybe the younger kids
Well,
do,
that's-
but I think with the younger kids, he's not even relevant. So
I
it's
know,
like,
but
so that's.
I think that's a good way to. It's easy to make him relevant now.
But he
Like,
wasn't. They didn't make him relevant when they made that other movie and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like
That's true.
that's
Yeah, I
what
agree
I'm
with that.
saying. Like
I
there
don't
was
think
no
Batman was
man.
relevant either.
Until
Keaton?
No, Batman wasn't
Yeah,
relevant.
he wasn't relevant until Keaton. There was a huge gap between the 60s and the 80s.
Oh,
and
till
Batman.
Keaton, yeah, but I think
No, but
Tim's
even-
talking
I'm
about
talking
between
after
Keaton
that.
and
Dark Knight and all
Dark
that
Knight.
stuff?
He
Like-
says he's not relevant. He was
he
in the
never- I mean-
90s. He was super relevant because there was a ton of toys coming out.
90s,
of Batman.
yes,
Yeah,
90s.
2000s,
Well,
early
the
animated
2000s.
series.
No, he
The
wasn't.
2000s was like just Beyond, and that was it, right?
What was that?
Batman Beyond. Well,
Between Batman Beyond and
When did Begins come out?
Batman Begins, and even Begins, I don't think Begins was like. It was until Dark Knight that I think Batman like really fucking hit it hard. Like Begins, I just think was one of those movies that just kind of happened.
I feel like Batman jumped up with 89 Batman and never came down. I mean, Batman or Robin sucked, don't get me wrong, but I mean, like, in terms of, like, oh, that was a bad movie,
Just
but the
Reeves.
comics are great, and the Kevin Conroy show is great, and Beyond is great, and this is, you know what I mean, like,
See, I don't know. I'm judging it
he's had
based on
so many wins in a row.
based
The
on my
one
friends and like what they would be into, and like my friends that aren't into all this shit. Like I have friends now that they love Batman and all this stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like that started because of Dark Knight. None of that other shit meant anything to them.
Gotcha.
Like I'm talking mainstream.
Yeah.
You know, people that watched Man of Steel because they thought it was going to be Dark Knight.
Yeah.
That didn't give a fuck about Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's a good point that because he's reached a point of irrelevance with younger generations of non-comic fans, like not in mainstream consciousness like Batman was, but like Superman was in the 70s and 80s, I think, or in the early 80s.
Sure.
That the time might be right for them to reestablish, if DC is willing to put the work in to reestablish Superman as a Batman-like hero, not in the sense that he's in Gotham and he's
Yeah,
Batman,
he's not
but,
dark, but he's...
but in the sense that like they're going to commit years and multiple movies to establishing what Superman is and can do, and get some fucking interesting villains in there for once, please.
Yeah, let him fight Brainiac for Christ's sake. I mean, Zod was supposed to be interesting. That was the problem.
They got to get the Superman guy.
Superman.
It's a girl.
She was
Girl.
in that. It was. She was in it. sadly.
That wasn't her name.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't Ursa.
Oh, it wasn't Ursa?
No.
I thought it was Ursa.
That was like Zephora or whatever the hell her name
No,
is.
that's too bad.
No.
These movies are fucked, man.
She's the makeup lady.
It was
Aurora?
It was Mac
Sephora?
makeup.
If they can reset
Some made up name.
DC, I mean, maybe DC's willing to do that. Maybe they're
They
going
are.
to. Maybe they're going
No,
to.
they're moving into this Justice
That's the
League
thing.
business, and then it's
We're
Justice
screwed.
League out.
We're screwed for the next, 10 years on this?
Yeah.
Like,
we're not screwed. It's just that like Superman's gonna continue to be this weird thing.
I think the DC universe is screwed. Like,
Sure.
we're gonna, the direction they're going is so catch up and just so the wrong way to do it. Like, they should have just took a step back and we're like, guys, fuck what everyone else is doing. What's the right thing for us to do? Then everything would be good.
Yeah.
Now we're stuck in this thing. Spider-Man's in some fucking hell right now.
Right.
Of like, what the fuck's happening?
If he can get out for
Hopefully,
Civil War, like they're talking
if he can
about.
get into Marvel,
Oh,
if that
speaking
can
of which,
get
I read
going-
that. I want to talk to you guys about that.
Another topic,
Another
another day.
topic.
Yeah, because we can, whatever the fuck we want.
Right, there you go.
I love
Kind
this.
of funny.
Kind of funny. Side note, what do you guys think about my brand new Justice League mug?
It's my Justice League mug.
I just got it today at
it's
the
mine.
store.
Who's that? Hawkman
Yeah,
This is,
it
oh
Hawkman.
yeah, it's Hawkman right there, baby.
and Green Arrow.
Yeah.
That's Green Arrow. That's
And Aquaman.
Superman, Aquaman, and we've got
I know more than I let on.
Green
I think.
Lantern and the Flash.
Yeah, I think in here you got to get it through
Batman.
osmosis at some point.
I've known all those
You're out
guys
there
because a few of
working
those
out while
guys.
doing Green Arrow.
Well, a few of those guys were in that. No, that wasn't the right. There was a side-scrolling arcade game that I used to play. Oh, it was X-Men maybe. No, I don't know if it was X-Men. There was a guy with an arrow. He shoot arrows, but he was in purple.
Yeah, that's Avengers.
That was X-Men.
X-Men versus Avengers.
Was it?
Yeah, I remember it was a side-scrolling arcade game.
Yeah.
Beat 'em up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to play as him because he had that range combat.
that's what it's all about. So get it together. Let me write your Superman video games and movies for you.
Oh, I would love that.
Bring
Colin.
back
Hey, Greg,
Batman.
I got an insult for you.
Oh,
from
whoa.
Michael Pete.
Oh, thanks for you waited for my topic to insult me. Thanks, Kev.
Hey, no worries.
Michael Pete wrote in with this topic. He's a Patreon. Go to patreon.com.
I feel like Michael Pete hates you. I feel like I hear his name a lot.
No, we talked about this, Kevin. We opened up, 4 tiers, $11 things for people to write in insults to insult me every show.
So good.
The people who did it have never moved.
Awesome. Oh, Michael
So
Pete.
it's always Michael, it's always Foundation 9, and so on.
Maybe we should make more of those tiers. 2 insults per show.
Okay.
Why not?
So maybe they can start insulting you for a change.
I don't like that.
I
No
kinda
one
like
wants to
it.
insult me.
Let's get it, Kevin.
So Greg has stepped down from president of Team Fat and has now taken up the position of president of Team Slightly Overweight.
Yeah, it's true.
Damn.
Fuck off! What do you mean? You're
Damn.
slightly overweight.
Fuck, we have to reprint the shirts.
Slightly over.
We should make
Team slightly overweight. That's not a bad idea. But like,
I would rock that.
what I mean, like body mass index, I'm still bigger than you.
Yeah. You
So,
are.
like,
No, you are
you're
bigger.
slightly overweight. I'm fat
You're not fat.
comparatively.
Greg, I told you I was looking at. I watched a specific video. It was the
No, this-
season 2 intro at the conversation with Colin when you're sitting at the table.
But
and
I
you
had
have
cancer then.
And Greg, you looked. I'm not even trying to be mean. You look like you had or 100 pounds heavier at that point.
Yeah,
like, I'm not even
I
being
bloated
facetious.
up. I did the bloat. I got the bloat.
Got the bloat.
I think that you just ate so much salad that your body's become. Your body just it wants more spinach. And it wants more leafy greens.
All I ate
and
last
kale.
night.
Leafy greens.
Last night I had a roll and like 20 toasted
Rigmarole.
ravioli.
I love that. See, what's funny to me about the Team Fat conundrum is, A, I'm the real president of Team Fat, and B is that it started out as a joke, but it's dug so deep into the fan base of the GameOverGreggy show that
Vernacular.
tick.
like it's people are coming at you now, and I feel like
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
a
like
funny insult.
a little responsible for it.
Well, yeah,
You know,
'cause
like-
you're a jerk. You let these people fight your battles for you.
Well, I'm the commander. I don't fight my own battles.
Commander in chief.
No, but for real, I mean, I think you got to put on at least 20 more pounds. I don't know what's.
I eat what I want. I like what I eat. We're working from home now.
What are you,
am I gonna
what are you,
work?
fat bastard? I eat because I'm fat. I'm fat because I eat.
We're not.
vicious cycle.
We don't walk anymore. Like our new life is just getting up and walking out.
Well, I'm
crawling
gonna
here
be
and
working.
walking
I'm gonna be working out every morning.
On that elliptical.
There you go. Then this is what I go back to. True Team Fat people don't like exercise. They want to work out.
I never said I liked it. I hate it. I tell
do
you
it
all that
every
all the
day?
time. I hate
Yeah.
it because I have to. I feel guilty if I don't because then I can't go balls deep into whatever I want to eat.
If you can't go balls deep, just don't go.
I'm going, but I am. See, I am going balls deep because I facilitated it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the
I
difference.
just eat what I like, and I don't worry about that part of
Yeah,
it.
but you like leafy greens, Greg.
You like kale too. Don't act like you don't like kale.
Who the fuck likes kale?
We do.
You
We
guys-
are Kale Brothers.
No,
Moriarty
man.
Miller, 2016.
Ah,
That's who.
kale.
Kale's delicious.
Where
What
the
is
hell
wrong with you?
Where the hell did Nick go?
He went to the bathroom.
Kale's
I love how
garbage.
Nick's just like, I'm not part of this anymore. I'm
He
gonna
doesn't
go.
even care.
Yeah.